So after my wife had been, down a week of binge drinking alone under house arrest, and then she took a bunch of medications. Really tried to commit suicide with handfuls of medication, and she was taken to the hospital. And this, if this is the first time seeing me, this is actually part four of a story of my wife's house arrest that went on back in 2018. Now, once she was in the hospital, the police actually came because she had a GPS tracker on her ankle, and they came in and actually cut it off her ankle, and they realized that house arrest probably wasn't appropriate for her. So she was in the hospital for about 14 days. She was on a psych hold for that time, and she had to have a nurse sitting by her the entire time. Crazy. Now, the situation was this. I actually called her family up. All her parents came, her sister, some of her in-laws, uh, and my son and I were there. And I remember my son and I would just kind of sit in the corner, and she had her whole family around her, and she had nurses coming in, and she would like introduce us to the nurses and things, and like, hey, this is Sally or whatever. And my son and I were just kind of back in the corner, just going, wow, she's not even addressing the situation that she has put herself through and ourselves through. I mean, she was foaming at the mouth. I had to call 911, and none of that seemed to even face her. Like, wasn't even addressing it. So my son and I left. We left the hospital. We visited her that one time and came back like a week later. We just couldn't be around it. My son was really tired of it at this point. He would have been 17 at this point. And it was not something that we could deal with a whole lot more. So once she got out of the hospital, I immediately took her to one of her favorite rehabilitation facilities, and this is the fourth time that she went to this particular facility in Palm Springs, which is about an hour and a half from where we live. I didn't even allow her to come home. I had a bag packed from her hospital bed, and she was not happy about it. She demanded that we go home, so she had to get a couple things, and I said, I got her in the car, and we actually drove right to the rehab facility, which was very upsetting to her. But there's no way that she was coming back to our house. And these are the type of things that you need to implement as a family member. There can't be any bending. This is the way it's going to be. Unfortunately, I couldn't have her living with us for a period of time. We all needed a break. So she went to the rehab facility for 30 days. When she got out, we made a deal with the court. So instead of house arrest, she had to do a court-ordered outpatient facility, and she had to be there up to 8 hours a day, and this was going to last for about 6 months. That went well. I mean, it was called Hill Recovery in Temecula, which was just an absolutely wonderful place. The people there were wonderful, and this is really how I started getting my real deep dive into the education, into what was going on with my wife, because I would go with her on Thursday nights, which were family nights, and really have a really understanding of what was going on with her. It was good until at one point I couldn't get home at night. So she ended up, I allowed her to drive to the facility. I mean, she hadn't had a drink. This is probably the longest period in about almost 90 days. So she had to get back and forth, to the rehab, to the outpatient facility, which was only 10 miles away. It was just on the other side of town. And there was one Friday that I remember, and I followed her, or she came home, and I could tell she'd been drinking. And I'm like, you're in a court-ordered outpatient facility after being in a 30-day rehabilitation, after being in a psych hold for 14 days, after being under house arrest and almost killing yourself, underneath being on a house arrest, and now you're coming home, and obviously you've been drinking, spending 8 hours a day in a rehabilitation facility. And I said, well, where are we going to go with this? And then she was in denial. I hadn't been drinking. I went out to her car, and there was 12 beers missing from a 30-pack case of Coors Light sitting in the back of the truck. And I went, where are we going to go from here? And really, at this point, you have to understand, it's not about disparaging the alcoholic, or certainly my wife in this case. It's about, what do family members do in this situation? And quite frankly, it comes to the time where when you have tried every single thing you can do, you really just need to start protecting yourself. And I've had a lot of clients I go over this with. If you have a home, you need to put it into an S Corp or C Corp. You need to separate your assets and really make a plan of attack of how you're going to proceed with court. because there comes to a point where there's nothing else you can do as a family member, and understanding it's a mental health disease. But you also don't want to go down with the ship, and you don't want to influence your children and the next generation with this type of disease, and you do need to protect yourself. So unfortunately, and really very unfortunately, after she did the 6 months outpatient facility, it was actually the next year. I think we're really almost into the last year of her life at this point, early of 2019. And it just became business as usual. She was never allowed to drive again. She never drove again. I mean, the keys, we just locked them up. That fact, ended up taking the battery out of her truck. She had a BMW X5. She never drove it the last year. In fact, the car just sat in the driveway. And my car keys, I actually, when I went to bed, I put them in a vault and hid them at night. Even if I took a shower, she was not allowed to have any access to any transportation, which really isolated her. But there's nothing else we could do. So if your family members are going through this, I also want to point out her book, which is came out last week, which is called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. Many stories like this in it. It's not designed, it's absolutely designed for awareness of this disease. It's from the perspective, obviously mine, from the family perspective. And it's an important perspective because it's a family disease. Families need to understand there's only so much they can do, and they can put all their effort and energy into something, but the alcoholic, ultimately, it has to come from them. And understanding that is so important in the health care of everybody involved. And I really hope that makes sense. And again, I go live Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We have the Facebook group. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. Again, link is in my bio in the link tree. And when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, I have a complete coaching program that's designed for both the alcoholic and the family. It takes about 45 minutes or so. We do a deep dive into what's going on with you, and then we go over the program. The call is free. It's not just to talk, it's to go over a program and how to proceed. And the program is definitely not free, but we have lots of different payment programs, and I have 100% success rate for the people I've involved thus far. So, again, thanks for listening.